Welcome to Psychocast, the Psychoanalytic podcast dealing with music, literature, movies and art. And today's question is Don Henley a boy of summer? Don Henley, formerly drummer of the Eagles, had a major hit of a solo career with the famous tune Boys of Summer. I really like that song. It captures that feeling of a passing summer season, nostalgia and a kind of introverted melancholy. Yet there was always something more to this song that kept me coming back to it. Then I realized that this song is not just about a certain summer experience, but a time of life in general. A time of life that won't come back. Something's gone for good. Rewatching the video with the lyrics once more, still other things stood out to me, and this is it. What I want to go into this episode by listening to the lyrics and picking out visuals from the video clip. What I was wondering about was the title of the song, for example. Why is it called Boys of Summer? Why would they be placed so prominently in the title? Certainly other options for the title would have been possible. And then in the video, there are frequently pictures of young, muscular men rising up. What about that? Oh, wait a minute. Am I going to imply that Henley is indeed more interested in those strapping young lads? Well, let's see. So, on the surface level, we hear a story of a lost love, which is quite generic actually. In the chorus, Henley mentions again and again a certain woman he's obviously really attracted to. And in the verses, we kind of get a story of how they spent the summer together. But something happened, and their love went wrong. But after all, Henley claims he still loves her. His love will still be strong. Well, as far as that story goes, it is, as I said, rather generic. We have to look closer to realize what's so gripping about that song. Going over the details of the lyrics more quickly in order not to waste time and severely limited attention spans, we hear of Henley driving through empty streets while summer is passing. He is directly addressing the girl that he's so attracted to. He still clings to her since he is, quote, driving by your house though I know you're not home, end of quote. Besides, I identify the lyrical ego with Henley for two reasons. First, he is shown singing the song, driving through empty streets, so there's a parallel there. But secondly, and more importantly, there is this kid in the video playing drums in front of a large screen. Since Henley used to be the drummer of the Eagles, this kid always resembled him in my mind. But why putting that kid in the video anyway? I do think it has a deeper meaning, but I'll come to that. Well, in the second verse, Henley describes the relationship with that girl. It must have been quite intense, since he made her scream and she made him crazy. He even goes so far as to question the reality of those memories. Was it all nothing but a beautiful dream? Which is, as we know since the interpretation of dreams by Sigmund Freud, a fulfillment of a wish? But something went wrong. Love got bad, and Henley does not know why. But he swears to, once he gets her back, to, quote, show you what I'm made of, thereby focusing on a kind of strength of his, which was formerly lacking. In the last verse, the parallel of that kid and Henley is made obvious in the line to, quote, never look back, which both of them do, actually. A sticker on the Cadillac reminds him of those past times, and he is, quote, on the road today. Well, all this talk of empty streets, an empty lake and empty beaches And he being on the road makes me feel he is rather restless, kind of in a constant motion. And in the last verse, he claims to not know what love is, which is really an interesting thing to say. And how he tells himself to let go of the lost love, never look back. But somehow that's not working. And we'll have to find out why. As for the choruses, to my mind they show how he indeed can't let go. He still sees her vividly, describing her brown skin in the sun and even little details such as her sunglasses. And reading closely, we hear him speaking in present tense, while in the verses everything is in the past. Quote, "Gone forever." Looking at the video, the visuals, all held in black and white, highlight the facts of a past experience, of something long ago. Well now, what went wrong with their love, and why is he unable to let go? I think the video is actually full of clues and subliminal hints. Going over all of them would take the rest of the summer, so here are just a few. I bet you could find even more. For example, in the first frame, we see a girl and a boy running along the beach, wearing very outdated clothes. Everything, again, is pointing at past times. And looking even more closely, we see how she's actually running away from him. Then we see those muscular boys jumping behind a fence, and even in slow motion. The faces of those boys will never be seen throughout the video, only their very muscular bodies. They are just generic boys of summer, from which Henley differs in his lasting love, as he claims. I'm already drawing connections here, but stick with me. Henley himself is seen wrapped up in a coat as opposed to the boys, not partially undressed as those boys, and with hands in pockets, pulling it close as if he were cold. Truly not a boy of summer, Summer's gone, it seems. And then there's the kid playing drums in front of a screen which displays those large numbers, countdown numbers known from old movies. Did you notice that a kid is playing drums in a room that's filled with toys and children's playthings? And both the kid and Henley keep their gaze fixed at the camera, while a woman sitting nearby is positioned off-center, giving a rather bored impression. Could this be the girl in the song that's just over with their relationship? Why is she bored? Then there's not just that woman depicted, but also a teenage girl in her room just after the kid is shown. What about her? There's so much going on, I'd say you have a look for yourself at best. But what I want to point out are those young lads who at first look like they were playing ball or something, volleyball, or beach ball or something, don't know, but actually they are behind fences and are just randomly jumping around, like doing a workout or something. No, all those talk about half-naked boys. Well, here are some controversial thoughts incoming. Could it be that Henley is more interested in those guys, and that it is why the song is called Boys of Summer instead of Girls of Summer, for example? Otto Rank, who was a famous psychoanalyst in the old days, would certainly see a homoerotic notion there. The way in which those boys are shown resembles a certain kind of looking at male bodies. Muscular, chiseled physique, in slow motion, mostly shown from below so that they rise above the observers. Makes me think of statues from old Greek or Rome. something like godheads. Things are getting even more interesting now. So, obviously, those boys are objects of attraction, just like the girl Henley sings about. And listening to the chorus again, he is describing her in just the same way. Her body with the brown skin in the sun and, quote, walking real slow. To me, he's describing a kind of an ideal of a girl, even an archetypal girl. A rendition of a perfect girl of summer, to be more precise. There is for sure a sense of distance in his talking about her. Otto Rank might interpret that as a defense against the homoerotic notion. By being fixed on a larger-than-life girl in order not to realize that he's actually more into boys, whose qualities must not be named, but can be shown, and those qualities can be seen in the video for sure. Interestingly, that would offer an explanation why their love went wrong. Let that sink in. But although I don't really buy that interpretation, that he's more into boys than girls, there are certainly some interesting points sticking out, and no, I'm not giving you a definite interpretation, but add some food for thought here. In a very rigid Freudian fashion, one might, of course, think of a problem related to the mother. Of course, it's always the mother with Freud, you know. And the girl on the beach is wearing a swimsuit that might even resemble something Henley's mother might have worn back in the day when he was a kid. So there might be a parallel there. And in this line of thinking, Henley would be fixed on his mother, which is totally generic and a very old-fashioned Oedipal interpretation. And although there's a kind of triangular situation with Henley, the girl, and the boys of summer, I don't think this interpretation goes very deep, but most importantly, it leaves many aspects unanswered, and it does not, even in the slightest way, explain why this melancholy rules throughout the song. It's the sadness, to me, that sticks out, a kind of mourning. Let's think about those boys of summer for a bit. It seems those boys are only there a few months, and one can have a short love affair with them, but eventually they will leave. And we saw how Henley describes the girl as a girl of summer, but she lives at that place, wherever it is, yet she's not home. Is she gone as well? Maybe she's gone with one of those boys of summer? We don't know. And before this thesis will be, brought forward by someone else, I don't think he lost that girl to a boy of summer, to those other boys, because he could just mention that, but he doesn't. He keeps talking about other things, which I want to explore now. So I don't think he is kind of jealous. I don't think he lost her to someone else. And even if he did, that wouldn't change the deeper level of the interpretation. So hang on. In the last verse, he says that a voice in his head tells him not to look back. You cannot look back. What would it mean if indeed he wouldn't look back, if he were able not to look back? Wouldn't that make him a boy of summer as well? Thus, he wants to be a boy of summer, but cannot. He wishes he were one of those guys, but actually he's not. He keeps looking back. So why is he not able to let go? If we think of the bored look of the woman in the beginning of the video, did he disappoint her in a specific way? Why does he highlight in the second verse how intense their lovemaking must have been, bordering on something he can only dream of. But he tells us nothing throughout the whole song, you've got to be clear about that. Throughout the whole song, he tells us nothing about their emotional depth. He tells us how intense the lovemaking was, how he made her scream. But there's not really an emotional core to all of this. I don't think there's really a deep relationship between those two persons, between Henley and this girl. The feelings he communicates throughout the song, I don't think they relate to something that's really of an emotional core between him and her. It's something else. And this lack of emotion is mirrored in the chorus, where we get to feel how very attracted he is, but nothing beyond that physical attraction is conveyed. Think about it. And then, why is it so important to him to show her what he is, quote, made of? Was he, in a way, too weak, and now has to prove that not only his love for her will be strong? Why can those boys of summer leave her, but he cannot? Did they have their fun with her and now move on? But for some reason he has to keep insisting to her. But why? And still, we haven't heard anything about the reason why the song is so melancholic in nature. If he had indeed such hurtful experiences, where does this melancholy come from? Why is there this sadness? Disappointment clearly sounds different. And jealousy as well. There are so many songs about jealousy and being hurt. And there's always some kind of, anger. Maybe even some kind of narcissistic injury. But I don't hear this in Henley's song. I think something different's going on there. But of course, that's debatable. And of course, here's the disclaimer. I'm not diagnosing anyone here. I'm just speculating a bit. And following those lines of thought, it becomes clear why he would like to be a boy of summer. It would take the pain away that he feels. A pain that goes very deep, and now I'm thinking of that kid in the video. It is an incarnation of Henley himself, of course, but as a boy. Could this be, then, the boy of summer he wishes to be? That's an interesting pun, but I think it might lead us further. I noticed earlier that there's a woman in the video shown after the adult version of Henley, while there's a girl that follows after the young Henley is shown, the kid Henley, if you want so. Could it be that the loss of the girl in the song, of the woman actually, is a repetition of a loss that he experienced earlier in his life? That would lead into the direction of the cliché interpretation of the lost love for mother. Those idealized boys of summer might then be incarnations, fantasized versions of how he perceived his father to be back in the day, a larger-than-life kind of godlike figure, chiseled physique, very hard and tough. And that could even actually be, though I really despise those overly concrete interpretations. What's evident, though, is his idealization of that girl, or that woman, actually. And what happens frequently when someone is idealized is that the relationship fails. No one wants to be put up on a pedestal for long. That's kind of narcissistic pleasure, but that's not what you would like from a lover, And of course, one might raise the question why Henley idealizes that girl in that particular way. One possible explanation might be that this creates an emotional distance between him and her by repressing more troubling aspects of their relationship. And by more troubling, of course, I mean more emotional aspects. Or maybe he wanted her, a girl of summer, as a trophy for himself to become a boy of summer, which of course he isn't. He's just not that kind of guy. There are plenty of possible explanations, and it would be very interesting to indulge in them in depth, but the deeper we go, the more speculative things become. And still, we have to keep an eye out, or better, an ear open for that melancholic aspect of that song. Again, I want to repeat that if this song would really be about a narcissistic injury, I think the sound would be different all over the place. What's going on here is something different, and now we're going into that. Coming to an end. We see not only an idealization of that girl, but of those boys as well, and it does not mean that there's a repressed homoerotic core to those boys of summer, but that there's a wish to identify with them, to be like them. But obviously Henley is not like that. Why would he like to be like that? Because, and that's one possible explanation, because if you are a boy of summer, you can have those attractive girls of summer and vice versa. They make up a perfect pair which matches. And again, if he were a boy of summer, he could just leave her and never look back, have another love affair next summer and just enjoy your life. But he cannot. He keeps on insisting that he's still in love with her. So to tackle the initial question once more, is Don Henley a boy of summer? Probably not, but he might wish he were. And now we can answer the question of why the song is so melancholic in nature. And this is actually what makes this song so great, because it's a song about mourning. By not losing his identity and playing to be a boy of summer, but being himself, being that, well, sensible and emotional man, he chooses to stay true to his identity and to his feelings of love. And this is what the song is about. It's a song about mourning. By keeping that love and, well, letting go of it slowly but surely, and it hurts like hell. But he keeps doing that. And mourning actually is one of the toughest things you can do in your life. It is one of the toughest tasks you have in life. Not mourning makes you sick. It creates mental illnesses. But he chooses to go that way. And this is, I think, where the melancholy of that song comes from. This is what makes that song great. He is authentically hurt by that failed love affair, whatever the cause may be. But he clings to himself, to his feelings of love, not giving in to becoming some kind of a boy of summer. And if we follow that line of thought a bit further and keep in mind how he idealized that girl, being some kind of a girl of summer, but not describing any emotional aspects of her, one might even go so far as to say that the song is actually about himself. He's writing a song, he's singing a song about his own emotional state of being. It's not really about her, but about his sense of love. She is just kind of, a pattern, a stand-in for something. It's actually about his ability to mourn some kind of lost love. That's what this song is about. So in the end, there are many traces one could follow. Maybe he's narcissistically hurt because he failed to please her. Maybe he's got a fixation on his mother or some other Oedipal thing going on. Or maybe he's more into some kind of homoerotic kind of relationship. But listening to that song, all that doesn't matter anymore. Because he's enduring his feeling of a lost love. And that's what makes this song great. Despite all those possible explanations that led to the breakup of their love relationship. It's not important. Important is that he can endure that pain. And by that endurance, he keeps the magic of the lost summer. He's not giving it away, It's not like he's a boy of summer who comes and goes, and everything is the same and everything means the same, which in the end sums up to meaning nothing specifically. He's different because he is still feeling that love and he wants to keep it, actually he does not want to keep it, but he wants to mourn that lost love. And that's what makes this song so great. And if we go into that very deep level of interpretation, one might even say that this is a beautiful piece of art. Combining great lyrics with a great depth, that's what the Eagles are famous for actually. And it goes hand in hand with that very elaborate concept of the video. Great stuff. Only in the 80s, So thanks for listening, if you made it to the end. And if you've got an idea what could be analyzed next, let me know in the comments.